Hello, folks, and welcome to Transformed by Birth, a podcast about the rite of passage of pregnancy, birth, and new parenthood. I'm your host, Britta Bushnell, author, mythologist, childbirth educator, and an all around deep diver with a side of goofball. I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode explores bringing mindfulness practices off the cushion and into our parenting. So grab your comfy beverage of choice or take us along for a walk as we connect with mindfulness teacher and author of Raising Good Humans, Hunter Clarke-Fields. Before we begin, we start the way we always do, by lighting a candle. If you'd like to join me, please do so, or just take a breath as I light mine. Today's candle is an invitation into a moment of mindfulness. So let's face it, folks, parenting is tough. As parents, our body, our nervous system, and sense of grounding regularly take a beating in the daily work of raising children. The demands of modern day life frequently clash with the pace of kids. We're frequently cramming little feet into too small shoes, then strapping a kid into a car seat and zooming off to get the things done on our never completed to-do list. And then there are the days and moments when the joy of seeing our children grow and witness the beauty in the world can move us to our core. We need tools to help us navigate the energetic and emotional yo-yo that is life with children. One such tool is mindfulness. Now, I want to acknowledge that a formal meditation practice wasn't a part of my daily life when my kids were little. I know many parents who have or have had a regular practice throughout child rearing, but frankly, that wasn't me. So if you're worried this episode isn't for you because you know you're not going to have a seated meditation practice, keep listening. The tools of mindfulness, even without a regular formal practice, were woven throughout how I raised my kids and were foundational to fostering the presence and clarity I wanted to embody in my parenting. Which brings me to today's guest, Hunter Clarke-Fields, who has over 20 years of experience in meditation and yoga practices and has taught mindfulness to thousands worldwide. She is also the mother of two active daughters who challenge her every day to hone her craft. So this isn't just theoretical here, folks. It's part of her real life. Hunter helps parents break free from reactive parenting patterns that often get passed down from generation to generation. And she's here today to share some wisdom with us. So, Hunter, welcome and thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Britta. This is lovely. I've never done a podcast with a candle before. It's so nice.
Well, I'm kind of a ritual person. So I love a little moment of mindfulness, a place where you and I connect here. And a candle is also a ritual moment to take for you and I, even as we sit across a Zoom with one another and for our listeners. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit wonky because our listeners are like, wait, I'm out walking and there's no candle, but it's
They
really
can
just an
feel the candle.
invitation.
Yeah, I bet you
Yeah,
can, dear listener. You feel the candle.
you feel the candle. And it kind of connects to what we're talking about today, which is even just bringing in moments of mindfulness.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I want to start, if we can, with sort of the loaded question that is in the title of your book, which is, what does it mean to be a good human?
Oh, that's a
Like
that's a great
that's
question.
loaded.
What does it mean to be a good human? Yeah, I mean, I think it means different things to different people, but for me, and actually I just talked about this. My daughter, who's high sensitivity, was the inspiration for Raising Good Humans, is now 18, and we were together over the weekend. And I said, I remember saying this to her that, like, for me, my intention was like, I wanted my daughters to feel comfortable inside their skin.
Mm.
I wanted them to be empathetic to others and to balance that with self-awareness and just that, you know, yeah, that comfort inside your skin. It's the best way I can say this because it's this idea of I accept myself as I am, I'm a human and I'm flawed and that's okay and I accept myself and I have um I have empathy for others as well. So for me, a good human is kind of wrapped up in that mostly. And I also think it has to do with, you know, how you care about the world as well. I think part of mindfulness, especially with little kids, and it is oh wow, look at
Yeah.
this world, look at this plant, oh my goodness, it's and bringing that curiosity and that awe into the world and the slowing down and appreciating it, or yeah, bringing that curiosity into everything. So that from that comes a caring about the world in a certain way. When you can cultivate um, that ability to pay attention, to slow down, and to be curious, and to wonder about the natural world, about other people, etc., all of those things. And so from that come all these good traits that we want, which is like caring for other people, caring for the earth, taking care of yourself, right? And that's all of that together, I suppose, would be what my personal definition of a good human is.
I love that. I'm kind of hearing it on a couple of different levels that empathetic, compassionate connection to self and others and the world. Kind of
Yes.
all of that looped in together sounds a little bit like the nexus of what you're saying. And I
Yeah.
love that, and this shows up a lot in your book, that one of the main things you spoke to is that empathy and connection to self.
Mhm.
Because that's, oh boy, that's loaded in parenting, isn't it?
It's very loaded. But yeah, if you can feel comfortable in your own skin, you have confidence, right? That's how you raise confident kids. Yeah, if they're comfortable in their own skin and they accept themselves, they have some level of confidence in the world, and then that's all, fortunately or unfortunately, for depending on how we were raised and what our circumstances were, all tied up in how we experience that ourselves as parents.
Mhm. Yeah. So there's also that mirroring aspect happening where it's
Mhm.
helping them find that place of feeling comfortable in their own skin while working as the parent to feel comfortable in our own skin.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting because there's, everyone's very interested in things like attachment. Of course, when your babies are little, et cetera, you want to hold them close and all that because of attachment. And I've been doing the Mindful Mama podcast for over 10 years, and it's been interesting. I've talked to many people about attachment. And one of the things that comes through again and again is that it all comes down to it's not about the it's not about how you're sleeping. It's not about whether they're in a stroller or on your body. It's like it's about you and your level of being able to be present with your own feelings and stuff. That self-awareness in you as a parent. And it's so interesting and it's like what a lot of people don't want to hear. You want to have a list of
Yeah.
actions to do
Can't you give
outside.
me my more on my to-do list that's just I get to check it off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really comes down to your own self-awareness as a parent, your own ability to metabolize your emotions, to be able to feel what you're feeling in the moment, to be present with what is, whether it's difficult or not difficult. And that's really hard to do. That's hard to do for us and all humans, you know.
Yeah.
And forget about it when we feel like we have the weight of, here's this precious human life on my shoulders and I gotta get it right. So, So yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes I think sometimes the second baby's a little better off in sometimes in that realm because the parent's just a little too distracted and a little more relaxed, and that's so great for the kid. They may not
Yes.
remember every single thing, but it's so nice to have like just a slightly more relaxed parent.
Yeah. I mean, I often say because the first child, they are the one that um, initiates you into
Yeah.
parenthood. And that child comes into an adult world, and the second child comes into a child's world. Like your world has already turned topsy-turvy. The
Mm-hmm.
schedule has shifted to the schedule of a child. Your energetics around how they move and what their pacing is has already shifted. So when the second child comes in, it's like, oh, toys on the floor. Yep, check. Used to that. And so there is an ease in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is easier. Also, it can depend on the child. For me, I was lucky in that my highly sensitive child came first. I feel for the people whose intense, spirited, sensitive child comes like second or third, because then you think, oh, I got this. It's easy. And then you get that kid who needs a lot. And you're like, wait a second, what happened?
Absolutely. And yet, therein lies some of the value of a mindfulness
Yeah.
practice or the tools of mindfulness. To one of the things you talk about in your book is about meeting your child anew every single day.
Mhm.
Like you wake up every day to a new kid. And there's that aspect, even with that energy you just spoke about of this child, that child. I mean, those are bigger versions,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
every morning,
It's true. Yeah, I
right?
mean, the truth is that's true for all of us, in that impermanence and change is the only thing that is constant in life. So it's happening at a slower pace for all of us, but it's so quick, and with our children and with our babies, and with the baby, it's hourly, it's daily, it's weekly. We're seeing these changes happening. Um, and I don't say that to add pressure to parents to say, oh, be present every moment, watch every moment because it's going by so fast, and because you can't, it's impossible. So so don't, it's okay for you to be a human that has other thoughts in your head than about your child, right? Like that's okay. Um, but yeah, it's helpful to help us bring a sense of curiosity into the situation. And I think when they're babies, sometimes this may not be necessarily what you need, because you're like, whoa, this is all new. Everything is curious and new. And you just want some rhythm and some stability and some sanity. And, you want those things that where you're inviting in that energy of like a mountain and that stability into this churning world that you've just, your world has just been churned up. Um, and then, the idea of bringing this curiosity comes in when we start to get back into our rhythm, and then our mind starts again taking these shortcuts that the mind starts to do. Our brains want to use a lot of energy, and they want to conserve energy as much as possible. So the brain takes shortcuts as much as it can to conserve energy. And that may be coming up with an explanation or a thought of something that was from your own childhood. Or, oh, it may come, with something like, oh, that my 18-year, they're trying to manipulate me, or they're, they're,
Right.
it
Old
comes
habitual
habitual
patterns of
patterns.
thought
Mm-hmm.
that may not be true, but
Mm-hmm.
they can feel very real
Yeah, and
because they're embedded. Yeah.
that's where we want to get curious. When I saw my oldest daughter barking orders at my younger daughter, I thought, oh wow, this is a wake-up call. These habitual patterns of communication that I had been repeating weren't so skillful, weren't so helpful. They don't sound so good coming from the mouth of a 3-year-old to a 1-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
So, um, So yeah, this curiosity is, you know, who are you today? Can I get in this place and of on the spectrum, it is curiosity on one side and judgment on the other. And judgment is our mind's natural, understandable, normal ability to take shortcuts because it just conserves energy and you need a lot of energy, right? But we can start to shift into curiosity. We can practice it. It can grow stronger.
And I think that relates even in the earliest days of parenthood,
Mm.
because it can there are often these experiences right off the bat. A baby comes out and there's kind of an expectation from that judgment side that we should have it all figured out already.
Mm.
We're the parent. We've got this. When we actually maybe don't got this,
Mm-hmm.
where we're as newborn as our baby is in the form of our parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really tricky and to be able to have that practice of curiosity can be soothing. I'm not going to say it's necessarily an antidote to the judgment, but it can be soothing to
Well,
the judgment.
I think it's best when it works best in those times when we're practicing it with ourselves. Oh, I had this feeling, I had this reaction to this experience, this past week has made me really anxious. Like, what is going on? Can I be curious about why that is? Some with babies, we're really trying to fix and solve problems all the time. Okay, what is the problem here? Let me fix it. Um, and and with ourselves and our emotions and all the churning that is happening at that time inside ourselves, it's really, really best to bring some curiosity there. You know, can I be kind? So the what we're talking about, like these are the attitudes of mindfulness. So mindfulness is the a practice or to put your attention into the present moment, um, with kindness and with curiosity, right? So it's two things. It's noticing when you're lost and coming back to being present, and then doing it in this special way, in this way of being curious and being kind. And this is a life, I mean, transformational, life altering experience. And can we be curious and kind about ourselves and what we're experiencing through this?
Yeah. And that's a piece that can begin even before we become parents, that can then create really fertile ground to plant that way of being with our children because we have planted it and worked on it with ourselves. So even if you're pregnant or trying to conceive, that part of this work is, I mean, all of it can happen before you have children. And the more that it's embedded in who we are as humans, the more it does seep out into how we are with our children as parents.
Definitely, definitely. What you practice grows stronger for sure. So if
Yes.
you're practicing getting up and grabbing your phone and checking social media, or your practice get up and sitting on the edge of the bed for a moment and taking 3 deep breaths, right? Whatever you practice grows stronger. These things that you do on a regular basis, daily, bit by bit, they really embed themselves in you. And sometimes I think of that like, we wouldn't send our kids to like Little League World Series without a coach and some practice, right? Like they need some muscle memory. And it's the same thing with our kids and our parenting. And when we're in that newborn stage, we're trying to survive. We're learning. We're trying to establish that stability. Um, but then soon we're in parenting, right? Like soon we've got an 18-month-old, a 2-year-old, and whoa, now you are really parenting. You are responding to things, on a moment to moment basis. And and it really helps to have practiced a little bit that slowing down, that being able to slowing down and pausing, making a choice how to respond. If that's
Mm.
like sometimes people ask me like if there's anything you would go and do over again, and mostly I wouldn't because my mistakes made me learn what I had to learn and write a
Right?
book
That's
about it.
important too.
Like I had to fail. I had to suck. I had to be yelling and having a temper to share it with the world, and that's fine. And our relationship is good now, happily, luckily. But if I didn't write a book and I could go back and change things, I guess I would go back and just slow it down a little from the beginning. I would practice slowing it down and slowing myself down, taking care of myself in that kind of way, in the way of I I don't have to I don't have a fire under my feet to get everything done. Like let me just slow it down.
Slow it all down. And even if the external factors can't slow down, there's a way we can slow down
Mm.
our responsiveness to them, our reactionary way of being with those tools of curiosity and kindness, the pause. There's also, you share in your book one of my favorite parables, excuse me, Buddhist teaching stories about the second arrow,
Mm.
which I think is applicable to this as well. Because even in that part of what would I go back and do,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, slowing down and slowing down in part to be really kind to ourselves, even in the midst of our own self-judgment.
Yeah.
Like how do we wrap ourselves up in that place of self, when we're being self-judgmental? Can you share that
Sure.
parable?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I love this one. It's one I've used for years and years and years in my teaching, and you do a beautiful job in your book. So
Oh,
please,
I'm
please
probably
tell.
not gonna tell it as well as I tell it in the book, but because I don't remember as much of the story, but the point is that we 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 get shot when life happens, life shoots its arrows at us, right? We get injured by different things in life. And then we look at our arrows and, what we often do with our arrows is we then shoot a second arrow into ourselves, which is that we add this layer of judgment and blame, etc., into our pain, right? And the thing is that life is going to have suffering. All of life is, we're not going to wake up later and figure it all out and be great forever. It's not going to happen. I used
Perfection is an illusion.
it's
Yes.
not going to happen. And so if we can stop shooting this second arrow of blame and shame to ourselves, we can experience the suffering of life, but then we can heal from it much more easily because we are not hurting ourselves more with our blame and our judgment. I
Mm.
didn't tell the parable as well as
Oh,
I I should have been ready with the parable, but
oh
uh,
no, it's all good. Yeah, I mean that's you got the gist of
I
what
have
it
the moral
is.
of the parable.
Yeah, I know, which is what most of us remember is the
Yes.
moral. Um, but yeah, that sending it back at ourselves, um, when we don't like what we've done, where it's the shame, blame, or the could, ought, would, shoulds,
Hmm.
that come in strong. And if we can be tender and kind with ourselves, so that even if that second arrow comes out, we're like, ooh, okay, there's that second arrow now. I'm gonna I'm gonna be as tender with myself in the face of that as I possibly can, is often what can soothe us. Because
It's
yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
don't know
what's
about
needed.
you, but I'm good at the judgment cycle because I can even judge myself for judging myself.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's that's sort of a classic one of like when we are when we've then started to practice, we're judging ourselves for judging ourselves. It gets a crazy sort of meta, but
Yeah, it's like how many different arrows are coming from different angles.
I know. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because when I make mistakes too, I do this, I've written this book and I do this teacher training. I do all these different things, right? And I make mistakes, I mess up, I'm human. And so I say to myself, like, okay, you have permission to be human, right? Permission to be human, Hunter. And I'm touching my hand in my heart as I say this. And that's not easy for a lot of people. And it is a practice that you can grow and learn. And people may listen to that and say, yeah, I don't really want to be self-compassionate, right? Like that drives me to do good things in the world. And there's actually a bunch of research on that. It doesn't actually make you do better in the world when you're harsh and judgmental on yourself. And if you think about it, being self-compassionate, I think is eminently practical, right? Like when I was yelling and I had my big temper and I was so anxious and frustrated with my toddler, I when I said to myself, "Oh, you're a terrible parent. What's wrong with you?" When I said that kind of stuff to myself, I would just cry. I would just like be incapacitated by grief and sadness and shame. And and that's what judgment does to you. It leaves you incapacitated. Was I a good parent in that moment? No, because I was completely consumed with my own stuff. And so, if we actually want to be present, if we want to be available and open to the members of our family, it makes a lot more sense, practically wise, as far as efficacy goes, to just give ourselves a soft landing. And then when we do, when we say, oh man, that was hard. Oh, darling, to yourself, I tried my best. I have permission to be human. I'm allowed to make mistakes. I know that was hard. You say those kind things to yourself. A friend, you might say to a friend, it's so practical. You're then able to like get back up, enter the living room with the toys and the upset child or whatever you're facing and be there, you know?
Yeah, and there's the added knock-on side effect of when our children witness
Mhm.
us doing that,
Yes.
they learn how to be kinder to themselves
Yes.
in their own human foibles.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that is the biggest lesson in parenting is that it's modeling. Everything is modeling. You're showing them all the time. You're showing them how to be a good human. You're showing them through all your interactions. And so, you want to show them that I don't know. I think some of the biggest things we want to think that we want to show them is that we can listen, right? We can communicate kindly. That we want to show them that also that life doesn't end when you become a parent. That you take care of yourself and that that your child is part of your life, right? That your
Yeah.
child isn't 100,000% of your life.
Right. Yeah,
Even though they are in the first year, that's fine. It's fine. But it's nice for them to be integrated into your life and not necessarily the other way around.
yeah. I love that.
Does that make sense? There's a weird thing.
Definitely.
Dr. Shafali said this once. I saw her speak, and she said, love your children more and care less.
Hmm.
And I love that because what she meant, and I love what she means by this, and what she meant was that, um, like, let them have their lives. Don't care, don't, it's a little bit like don't hover and over every single thing and make their lives your lives because that's too much pressure on a kid to be everything for somebody else, right? And it's
Right.
too much, let them have some time where they're I know it's hard to imagine this as a baby, but like when that pretty soon, like let them have some time where they're integrated into your life and you're not 100% gazing into their eyes every second.
Yeah, but I mean, there's an aspect of that even with infancy, which is acknowledging what is true for them
Mhm.
that may not be something that we can rescue them from.
Yeah,
So,
actually, there's in the mindful parenting teacher training, we do this piece. It's called figuring out whose problem is it? Who has a problem in this situation? Does your child have a problem? Do you have a problem? Right? And that kind of changes how you're going to communicate with the situation. So we go through a series of scenarios about whose problem is it. And sometimes it's very obvious. Your kid had got in a fight with a friend, then they have a problem, right?
mhm,
But there's this one scenario that we talk about where it's like your baby went and had some shots at the doctors that you want them to have, and they're upset. Whose problem is that? And yes, to a degree, when you have an infant, all of their problems are your problems and that you're soothing them, but it's not your problem. Like your child is going to be upset, and it's
right.
okay for them to be upset. It's actually safe and desired in this situation for them to have this upset, and you can be their comfort, you can be their source of security and soothing and all of that, but it is not, you can't fix that problem for them. You, in fact, you know, are there, you're probably the source, right? In some way, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting to think about that. Who's,
And there's something
and there's
in
a letting
that.
go. There's a letting
There's a
go.
letting go,
Yeah.
and there's a tending to our own nervous
Yes.
system's
Yes.
needs,
Yes. Yes.
because feeling the upset of an infant is really hard
Whew.
on the nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
because our body is kind of wired to
Mm-hmm.
say, this isn't okay. I need to
Mm-hmm.
do something to make this better. And sometimes we can't.
Yeah.
And so then what do you do?
Yeah.
What are some tools folks can utilize in those moments when their body is starting to react because they can't put all of their attention on fixing the problem, which I want to get into talking about fixing problems because I love that part of your book as well. But we can kind of jump in
Yeah.
here.
Well,
So,
I mean, I think that's so interesting because that's the thing. Like when you have an infant, you feel like you can fix all the problems, right? Like that's your job, right? Is to fix all the problems kind of for them because they're so helpless and then very soon you go to the doctor's office. Soon your infant is walking around and gets upset and has a tantrum and there's nothing to fix. There's just the nervous system alarm bells going off, but there's nothing to fix. There's nothing to do. And so one of the biggest skills that mindfulness has taught me and is one of the most essential skills in life, I think, is to be able to sit with that difficulty and not react to it and to notice it and to digest it. The one of the things we talk about is this idea that um I don't know, like most of us were taught when we have a difficult feeling, we're taught to kind of push it away, like don't cry or go away, go to your room, or to just solve the problem. Like we are naturally sort of hardwired to avoid that kind of discomfort. But it's the way we digest those difficult feelings, that nervous system difficulty, is not to push it away because then it's like a beach ball that you're shoving under the pool water and it just pops up bigger later, some other situation, right? Um, we have to actually digest this. We have to digest it. And so, kind of the middle path between, you know, pushing things away and then either drowning in things or exploding with feelings that are so unbearable is the mindful middle of feeling them without being subsumed, without drowning, right? We feel them and we digest them and we Look at them. And I think often our feelings are like are like toddlers who are like at our legs and they don't want to let go until you finally see and hear them. And that is what needs to happen. And so we can practice it with that baby who's upset, right? We can practice soothing them and soothing ourselves at the same time, not by making it go away by force of will, but by feeling it and breathing into it and noticing where is it in my body. And this is like, there's this famous quote that Dr. Viktor Frankl, who is the Holocaust survivor and psychologist in World War II, he wrote like, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our ability to make a choice, and in our ability to choose, I'm paraphrasing here,
Yeah.
lies our growth and our freedom. And that's what that is the ability to sit in that space of discomfort and let the nervous system ride it out and then make a choice. And that's the definition of being non reactive parenting. And
Yeah.
it's helpful at every stage and age. Like, I remember Maggie a couple years ago was mad at us for some swim team thing, and she was really mad. And my husband and I, we had messed up, and at first I was so like uncomfortable with her being mad at me that I was like, I got a broom and I'm like sweeping the floor. And I was like, realized what I was doing. And then I was like, okay, I put the broom down. I sat on the ottoman. I breathe. I was like, breathe in. I'm like a mountain. Breathe out. I feel solid. And I did this feeling of going into that space, of feeling it. And I didn't say anything. And within like 60 seconds, she slumped down on that ottoman near me and just slumped her body against mine. And there was nothing I could say to solve the problem, but just feeling it and being present. It helped for both of us.
Yeah, I was recently with my goddaughter and her family, and her son is my grandson in this family of choice that we've created. And there was a night when my grandson's parents went out, and he woke up and he was not happy about it, that they were out. And all he had was BB and Babu, to be with him. And he was upset, and I was holding him and able to be in that space where I was taking care of my nervous system. Oh, I was feeling grounded. I was feeling compassionate for him and solid in my own center and able to say to him, yeah, you really want mama. Yeah, mama's not here right now, and you really wish mama were here. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm a huge fan of the word and. It's one of my go-tos. And BB is here and I will keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay if you wish that it were mama. And he settled. He
Mm.
absolutely settled. Doesn't mean that he wasn't still upset.
But you saw
He,
him, you heard
yeah, but
him.
he softened. He would go, Mama. And I'd say, yeah, I know. You want mama. And I'm here and I'm with you. And he, Mama. I'd say, yeah, I hear you. You wish she were here. And we just kept kind of being in this space. And at one point I said, should we go and see if the moon is outside? He said,
Mm.
moon, and so we went, and then Mama. I said, yeah, Mama's not here, but she's coming home. And we just kind of danced in this dance together where we were present with what was true. I wasn't ignoring what was happening, what he wanted. And I just kind of moved with him. And I credit what we were doing together to mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. just
That
being.
that yeah, just being with his experience as well as mine.
I love that. That's like what there's a woman named Annie Burnside who wrote a book that I reference because I think it just makes so much sense. It's called Soul to Soul Parenting, and what she says is instead of being role to role, be soul to soul. It
Mm.
doesn't matter how old that other soul is. You're there together with them. And it's not about a technique. It's not about a strategy necessarily. It's not about being the perfect parent or godparent or whatever. It's just like, oh, I'm a soul here with you and this other soul, right? And can I be really see you? Can I really hear you? And to do that, we have to be able to see and hear ourselves.
And be able to hear and see ourselves, be able to sit down on the ottoman
Mhm.
in a moment where instead you're trying to sweep, right? And go, which we've all been there, and take a moment and go, wow, have that same kind of communication with ourselves. Wow, I'm really bummed that I disappointed my kid.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
do that. I have adult children now, so I have to, though the opportunities continue.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a gift there. There's such a gift there to be really seen and heard. And if we can practice to do that more of the time, maybe than not, right? Or you're not going to do it 100% of the time, right? You're allowed to be human. It's okay. Your kid doesn't need your attention every single time, right? That's okay. But if we can practice to do that maybe more of the time than we are unskillful, if we can practice to be skillful more of the time than we're unskillful, the gift of that is so beautiful. Like I could see when Maggie was little that I was damaging our relationship with my reactivity. I could see that I was doing exactly what I had decided not to do
Mm.
because was scared of my dad when I was little. Although he had a lot of great qualities and he was very enthusiastic and creative and all of these things, but and affectionate. Um,
All parents are human.
I know exactly.
All
And
of them.
anyway, I could see,
Even all of us with our best intentions, there are
yeah,
going to be aspects of our parenting our kids are not going to love.
we will mess up.
Mhm.
But yeah, I could see that I was damaging our relationship and I could see that she was getting reactive to me and we were going down a bad spiral. And I practiced to change that, right? I practiced to be steadier. I practiced to really um, steady myself for her because that's what she needed. I thought I was going to be able to take her in the carrier and go to folk festivals and let her
Right.
sleep whenever and just yeah, right. Like she needs some rhythm, she needs some routine, and I was like, oh, dang it, okay, fine, you know. And I really practiced to become that steadiness that her nervous system needed, her highly sensitive nervous system needed, and the fruit of that is I'm really grateful for. We're
Yeah.
close and we love each other and she tells me things and she has grown and transformed in a lot of ways too, and it's just it's a long haul, but the fruit is there in as we practice. It's so worthwhile.
Yeah, I love that story and just that connection to doing the practice of becoming the parent your child needed you to become,
Hmm.
and how that message showed up for you back when she was a baby or a toddler, but
Hmm.
it has carried all the way through to being a young woman. And that's remarkable. Um, I want to pivot and, if I can, mention the quote from the Dalai Lama that you open chapter 5 with, which you quoted him saying, "When you talk, you are only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new." And
Hmm.
that opens up your chapter on listening. And can you kind of take us into mindful communication
Mm,
with our children. Like
sure.
mindfulness isn't just what happens on a cushion, but
Mhm.
like in what's mindful communication?
Well, it really is about listening, right? It's listening to our own hearts, it's listening to our kids. But yeah, listening is this, we think about communication, we start to think about the words we're going to say, and can I get these scripts right to respond in a good way? And I remember thinking that, and then being so frustrated that I couldn't implement them because I would get reactive, and then I'd feel even worse because then I was like, I should have said what that person said I should say. Um, anyway, but I think that
Right?
yeah, a lot of what's happening with our kids, I think anytime our kids communicate with us, right? They want to be seen and heard. And it's just so important to kind of understand that every and that can be a lot if you've got like a preschooler or toddler, they like to be seen and heard a lot. So they
Yes,
may
they
not
do. And
always get their way, but
and it's both the fun stuff and the challenging stuff. So
yeah.
it can be all of it, right? And
It's
so it,
so
it
it's
takes
so
a lot.
intense. This
Yeah.
is why we need babysitters and the childcare at the YMCA and and
Yes.
all the family and all the help you can get when they're little. It would be so wonderful if we could actually have a village like and that would be so much better for our kids and for us and for everyone's nervous system and sanity. But yeah, they always want to be seen and heard. They're trying to communicate, right? And so a lot of times when they communicate, they have a problem. Mama, blah 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 blah. This cup is the wrong cup, or I don't, whatever it is. And and we are often a lot of like our habitual language in our culture is puts up barriers to that. I call those the barriers to communication. We tend to, maybe solve their problem right away. Like we
Right.
go
That
into
urge to fix.
we just go
Yeah.
in to
Well, let
fix
me just
it.
get the other cup then, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We go in to fix it, or we shame or blame, even inadvertently, what's wrong with you? It's fine. Or, I mean, I remember using that language of like, you know, you don't want to be a baby. You want to be, and that's like big girls are good with this, and that's not so skillful.
You can be
Um,
kind to yourself as you
yeah.
remember the old ways of doing it. I see those patterns popping up of, oh my gosh, did I actually say that? I
I
just
know.
see, listener, we we all have these moments where we're like, oh wow, when you know better, you do better, but you don't
Yeah.
always know. And
And
even when you
sometimes,
know better, you
yeah.
still screw up.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes you know better and you still don't do better because you have habits and you have reactions, and that's okay. It's okay to grow as now for me, reflectively listening is like so, it's funny because like I mentioned in the teacher training, I have to demonstrate like the unskillful habits, and it's so hard for me to do them now because the skillful reflective listening is so ingrained in me. But yeah, a lot of times when our kids come to us with a problem, there's not anything to necessarily do or fix. We just want to kind of like what you did with your
My grandson. He's
grandson,
my
god
grandson.
grandson.
Yeah, we just skipped the God part on that. It's
Okay,
just straight to
okay,
grandson.
straight to
Yeah.
grandson. Yeah, exactly. You want to just see and hear them, and it's amazing. This acknowledging a problem and just recognizing a feeling or a problem or what's going on for another person, it really just takes the temperature down for us. And it provides a lot of relief. And they've actually done research on this. Dr. Dan Siegel's done research on this, and they show in the brain how it lowers cortisol, et cetera, and it's called name it to tame it, right? You can just by recognizing, naming, labeling what's happening, it just takes the temperature down. So when our kids come to us with a problem, my brother hit me, blah, 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 a lot of times we don't necessarily even need to step in and solve the problem. I mean, especially not at first. What they really need from us is like, see me, hear me. And so some of that is just like, oh, right? Like sometimes listening and responding is just like, oh,
Yeah.
you match their face to their face. Oh, you're upset. Like this is hard for you, right? Like I really see and hear you. And it can be as simple as like toddler falls and hits their knee and instead of saying, "Oh, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay," you hear that constantly, right? In the
You're
playground.
okay. Come on, brush it off. You're
Yeah, or
okay. Yeah.
"You're okay."
Oh, and
You
yet
can just
they
say,
sometimes that
"Ouch."
makes it
It
worse.
makes it
Yeah.
worse because you're like, "No, you didn't hear me. I'm upset." And so sometimes we can just, it's as simple as saying, "Oh, ouch. I bet that hurt." And we may not need to dwell on it, right? Like we don't need to like therapize the knee
The
that hurt.
boo-boo on the knee. Right.
But but it's like just see and hear me. Acknowledge the problem. This is the number one mistake I think actually that parents make is that you just skip over acknowledging what your kid is saying to you, whether that's acknowledging the emotions or acknowledging the content. And it's like, oh, that must have been frustrating. Or, yeah, like my brother, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that must have been frustrating, right? Rather than trying to fix it right away. Just listen, just be there and reflect what you're hearing them say. I think this is such a powerful parenting skill. It's really a parenting superpower, and it initially comes from therapy, actually, from like in the 70s. Thomas Gordon and the creator of nonviolent communication, they took that kind of
Mhm.
language from therapy and were like, oh, lo and behold, works for all kinds of situations. But yeah, it's really very, very helpful.
Yeah. And we can do some of that with our own inner voices too.
Yes.
So when we can do both, like we can practice having that acknowledging, witnessing voice
Hmm.
with our child that is not embellishing what's happening
Hmm.
or dramatizing what there's,
Hmm.
oh my God, show me your knee. What happened? Oh, but just meeting, oh, did you fall? You fell here? I
This is
see
a very
this.
good execution note, dear listener. Pay attention.
Right? We don't want to embellish. We don't want to make
Yeah.
it bigger, but we want to meet it. And
Hmm.
similarly with ourselves, right? That
Yes.
mindfulness practice of speaking to our own inner child that is upset or feeling unseen or unheard, whatever the judgment side voices, those second arrows that start
Yes.
coming, they respond well to that same voice that you just talked about doing with our child, right?
Yeah.
Is to ourselves.
Yeah.
I love that. I love all of, yeah, I one of the ones, the boo-boo on the knee, you're okay, you're okay. I mean, how often do we say to our own inner voice when we're upset, you're okay, get over it, get over it, get over it, when really we want to say, wow, you're really bummed that that didn't work out.
Yeah. It can be hard, right? That's why we have, I mean, hopefully we are one of the tips for new parents is to please, please cultivate your mom friends and keep your friendships, even if it's not as, you're not seeing them the same way,
Yeah.
but sometimes they can say that for you in ways that
Yeah.
we can't for each other. Um,
Yeah.
we
And
need to.
as we speak that way to our children, we
Mhm.
help them develop the
Yes.
ability to that inner voice for
Yes.
themselves,
Absolutely.
which sounds kind of, I sometimes fear saying that because I don't want to load on the guilt.
Mm.
Like, because the opportunity for more guilt on parents feels so
Oh, I
prevalent.
know. Oh, all the
It's,
pressure on the first 3 years. It's so, I remember really feeling that, like, oh, so much is developed in the first 3 years. And I remember thinking, seeing my daughter Maggie be reactive with her sister and other people for many, many years and thinking, oh, did I really mess her up in those first 3 years when I was really reactive and I was really struggling and having a hard time? And I remember thinking that, I mean, even as she was as old as 10. And
Mhm.
then, thinking, well, I can only, do what I can do, right? I can only practice and etc. And then I remember one time, I don't know, she must have been 14 or something. I remember thinking that I don't know, I was afraid that she had absorbed my reactivity, my temper, kind of like not necessarily being empathetic. I was worried about that. And then I remember this one time where something happened. Oh, I had taken the dog out, and another, like, there was this moment of like a scary, like, dogs not getting along and barking, I got really scared and I got really upset. And I came in and I was talking about his skin. My younger daughter, who's the second one, who's naturally a little bit more empathetic and less, you know, she was actually kind of like defending our dog and like, Mom, don't talk about our dog that way. And the older one, who I had been worried about, had just absorbed these, because the first 3 years are so important. Um, she was she was like, Sora, can't you see the mom's upset? And she was like, Mom, do you need a hug? And I
Oh,
was like, yes, yes, I do need a hug. And then it was just like, oh, look at this. Like,
yeah.
she's changed too. Like, as I've grown and changed, she's grown and changed. She's, and yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It can happen at any age or stage. We had, yeah,
Yes.
grandparents do this work. It's like it can happen. I had a grandparent do this work with the mindful parenting course I taught in person, and because she was taking care of her 6-year-old grandson, but she came to me at the end and she said, I have healed my relationship with my adult daughter.
Mm.
And I was like, oh wow. And it just there's it's never it we're always growing and changing, so it's
Yes.
never too late. And yes, you are definitely going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Like, your kids
Yeah.
don't need a perfect person. It would be terrible if you were perfect. In fact, like, how would they feel, like, as a normal messing up,
Right.
angry and frustrated and mistake making human, to have some perfect angel as a parent that they could never, like, that would be terrible. You have to make mistakes and mess up and yell and be human, and that's okay. That's good. Let's just, try to make it, maybe percentage wise, we're trying to make the majority of time more skillful. And
Yeah.
then we forgive ourselves when we're less skillful.
Yep, we do the best we can,
Yeah.
instill as much of an inner dialogue for them
Hmm.
when because one of the things is when we screw up, we can also apologize.
Yes.
We can apologize, we can own it, we can, and then they learn how to do that. And
Yeah,
it's
it's the
like,
best way to teach an apology. Way better than you better go and apologize.
yeah, right? Go apologize to your friend for or that
Yeah.
teacher for what you did. It's like, well, if we've been an unskillful parent at a moment, we're human and we can go and say, wow, I mean, I can remember learning to apologize to my kid for outbursts because
Hmm.
outbursts were one of my things. I would hit kind of full
Yeah.
and I would go, "Ugh," and I'd be like, oh my God, wait a minute. I don't want to respond like that. And something really surprising happened, which is the more I acknowledged the reaction that was too big for the situation and apologized for the reaction, not always the message, because
Hmm.
sometimes what I was communicating was a message I needed to communicate, but my way
Hmm.
was outsized, and so I would apologize for that. I actually found that my outbursts reduced,
Yeah.
which I don't know the science behind that, but because I was turning into it and acknowledging it rather than being like, no, I never outburst, right? That doesn't happen. It's like,
You
no, it
weren't pushing the beach
happens.
ball under the water.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's, and so being able to acknowledge that I had a beach ball
Yeah.
made it so that the beach ball didn't go under the water so much.
The beach ball is actually not my favorite metaphor. Another one works here better, which is you had a big, fat, juicy, messy, emotional hamburger. And what we often try to do when we try to shove our feelings away, we pretend we don't have them, is that we eat this giant emotional hamburger and then we have no digestive system. And then it's a big mess.
It's a big mess.
But you digested your emotional hamburger.
And and then it actually made me not need them as much or be hungry for them. I mean,
Yeah.
not that they still didn't happen. I mean, one of my biggest emotional outbursts in my entire parenting was when my oldest was, how old was he? My firstborn. My firstborn was probably 16. And I mean, I remember it, right? It's one of those
Hmm.
ooh, ouch, I can still feel it. And I just have to be, to this day, tender with how how hard that moment was for me.
Yeah.
And that I didn't have better tools for navigating that. And I really, to the point we were talking about a little bit before, is I was not feeling heard
Hmm.
by my kid. And so I got louder and I got louder, hoping that he would hear me. And, so those are the ways, even back when I was the toddler saying, hey, mom, hear me, right?
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah, yeah.
dad, hear me. Some of these things give us opportunities to practice over and over again for our entire lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the things that's important to think about here, like if you're a new parent and you're like, wow, oh my God, I'm a little scared now.
Hunter, you think we're scaring them? Is that what's happening?
I think
Uh-oh.
we're scaring them. No, but if they're like, and this is all coming, like this heavy, difficult, challenging stuff, is that like, to give yourself a baseline, to practice to give yourself a baseline of stability and solidity, right, will help you enter all this tumult that we are discussing. So something that's like as simple as I wake up in the morning, or at some point during the day, I sit on the edge of my bed and I take 10 deep breaths.
Hmm.
Or at the end of the night, I light a candle
Yeah.
and I take 10 deep breaths and I put my hand to my heart. Or I journal.
Mhm.
Or I give my child to other people, other caring people, and I go for a walk without a phone
Yeah.
for 20 minutes, just quietly if in the woods if possible, right? Or like any of these practices that can lower your baseline of anxiety and reactivity and nervous system overload. That's that's what your kid needs. That's what your kid needs. That's my I'm trying to pull a takeaway out, right? Like don't
Yeah,
be scared, but
that's a great
practice,
takeaway.
practice to lower your baseline of 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 reactivity. It helps enormously.
Yeah. Even like if you have, I'm a big tea drinker,
Mm.
and I use my morning ritual of making my cup of tea, not a habit where I just do it without thinking, but as an opportunity to be mindful with the moment, watching the water go into the mug, putting in the matcha powder if it's a matcha that I'm having, which I'm currently in a matcha phase. So that's my current one. Stirring it, heating up the milk, putting the milk, like I have these, and rather than just from thing to thing to thing, breathing in those moments while I'm doing it. And
That's so
that's
beautiful. I see, I admire that. I'm too impatient for that. I like the mindfulness teacher who is into mindfulness because I need it desperately, but like, I've gotten to moments on retreats when I can do that with the tea and things like that, but in my daily life, I need to be like, this is my meditation time. And then I can be like, I'm making my cappuccino, I'm getting my breakfast, here I go. You know? It
so,
needs to
in
be
other
like
words, there's lots of different ways.
lots of different ways to do it. Yes.
There's not one way that is going to be the way.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is
Yes.
about
Yes.
being curious, coming back to the beginning of our conversation,
Hmm.
being curious with what's helpful to you and being kind to yourself as you navigate the journey of figuring out what helps you be present in moments over and throughout your day with your children and with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay, we pulled it full circle. Look at us. Yeah. Um, so where can folks find you and learn more about your work?
Everything I do is at mindfulmamamentor.com, and you can find the Mindful Mama podcast wherever you are listening to this wonderful podcast. So just look it up.
Yeah. And you offer a bunch of snippets too on Instagram
Yeah, yeah, we
that
do
are,
little
yeah.
clips of the podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Mindful Mama Mentor. But yeah, sign up for I have freebies that are kind of about mindful parenting and, what to do when you do yell or how to discipline without punishment. So there's all kinds of nice freebies that you can get at the website. So that's all at mindfulmamamentor.com.
Oh, great. And I'll make sure to have all of those links so folks can easily find you. So I like to close with the same question to every guest. So are you ready for our final question, our last opportunity
I
to kind
haven't
of
studied, but
connect?
I'll be as ready as I can
I
be.
know. Well, we can just be present with this moment. No studying required. So what's one thing that you feel passionately about that you want new or expectant parents to see, hear, feel, or know about this profound period of their lives?
Mm. I guess that it's incredibly hard and that you should get all the help you can get. That this time when your kids are 4 and under is the most intensive time of parenting. It's not like it gets that much easier. There is an adage, bigger kids, bigger problems. That is true. But get all the help you can get. Get the babysitter, get the help that you can get so that you can take breaks and you can have you as well. Not too much pressure to be you, but like it's a huge change. Obviously, everything's changing, but just get all the help you can get and don't burden yourself with being everything to your kid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Mm, yeah. Try not to burden yourself with being everything to your child. Yes, wise words. Thank you, Hunter. And thank you, listeners, for sharing this time with us. If something shared today impacted, supported, or moved you, please share this episode with a friend. I produce this podcast myself, and your support makes it possible. To show a little love for the podcast and these conversations, please follow, rate, and review. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please join us on Instagram at Transformed by Birth. I look forward to being with you on the next episode of Transformed by Birth. Now let's gather what we want to take away from this episode with an inhale. Hold it in for a moment. And as we exhale, I'll blow out the candle. Until next time, bye, friends.